Hi everyone, thank you again for joining my channel. It's been really fun learning about all these different countries. As you know, this week I am doing Paraguay. I read the book I the Supreme, which is about a dictator. As always, a quick update is that I will be posting the videos on Saturdays instead of Fridays from now on. This just works better for my schedule. So I will start the video with how I related to the culture or the country. Then I will go into some history. I will do my book review, and then I will finish with some fun facts. So let's get started. How I related. So number one is that their traditional dance also uses these long ruffled skirts, which we use a similar type in folklorico, which is a Mexican traditional dance. Something really cool about the Paraguayan dance is that they sometimes dance with bottles on their head, which is really cool. I'll leave you guys some pictures. Number two is that they have really turbulent weather, which reminded me of Scotland. Although in Paraguay, it's very easy to have lots of floodings. And they are a very, very humid country, and that reminded me of Texas, of Houston. Number three is that 90% of people speak Guarani and Spanish. A lot of the younger population speaks in a mix. Number three is that 90% of people speak Guarani and Spanish. The younger generation also speaks a mix, which is called Yopara. It's a pidgin language, which I found very cool and reminded me of the common use of Spanglish, which is not a pidgin language, but maybe more of the start of a mix of two languages that I use a lot with my friends. So I really like that. Let's go on to the history. So for the history, between 2000 and 1000 before Christ, the Guarani people lived there. In 1525, colonization began with the arrival of Portuguese explorer Alejo Garcia. 1 year later, an Italian also arrived. In 1537, it was the Spanish who decided to colonize the region, which at the time they called the Rio Plata, which stands for Silver Lake. And in this region, Rio Plata, it encompassed basically everything in South America except for Brazil. In 1609, the Spanish sought to convert the Guarani people to Catholicism. And a really interesting fact that set Paraguay apart from a lot of the other countries that Spain colonized is that the Spanish didn't impose the language Spanish on the natives. Instead, the Spanish ended up learning Guarani, which actually helped them maintain control of the region as they allied with the native tribes. To this day, again, that's what really, I believe, really helped preserve the language, and to this day, both Spanish and Guarani are official languages of the country. In 1776, Spain transferred the viceroyalty of what is now Peru to what is now Buenos Aires, Argentina. The Paraguayans in 1808 rebelled against Buenos Aires, and 3 years later, in 1811, under the leadership of the dictator José Gaspar Rodríguez de Francia, gained independence from Spain. And that dictator who I just mentioned is who this book is about. He was a socialist, that's important to say. He also was a dictator, which means that he ruled very repressively. One good thing that he did was that he did maintain control of the region, preventing neighboring nations from annexing the country. And he remained in power until his death in 1840. After his death in 1844 is when the new president was elected. His name was Carlos Antonio Lopez, and he sought to modernize the country and establish more communication with the neighboring countries. Between 1865 and 1870, there is the Triple Alliance War, which is also known as the Paraguayan War, took place, and that was when Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay fought against Paraguay. It was the deadliest war in Latin American history, and Paraguay lost more than half of its male population to this war and a significant amount of territory. Between 1932 and 1935, Paraguay gained territory in western Bolivia during the Chaco War. In 1953, General Alfredo Stroessner, one of the most known dictators of the country, staged a coup and became a dictator for 30 years. His regime was marked by repression, deaths, imprisonments, you name it. One of his big biggest goals was to expel communism, which he did, aided by the United States, who also looked to eliminate communism in Latin America. In 1989, there was another coup led by General Andres Rodriguez, and this brought an end to Stroessner's rule. Rodriguez was also Stroessner's son-in-law. He assumed the presidency, and he also took military control because of his status in the military. Therefore, Stroessner decided to self-exile in Brazil until his death in 2006. He never paid for any of his crimes. In 1992, the democratic constitution was established in the country. In 1993, the Colorado Party, the right-wing party, came to power. And in 2007, there were massive forest fires which destroyed over 100,000 hectares of forest and agricultural land. In 2008, after 61 years of conservative rule, Catholic bishop by the same party I just mentioned, the Colorado Party, Catholic Bishop Fernando Lugo won the presidency. A year later, there was a scandal which erupted as women accused Bishop Lugo of fathering several children. He denied these accusations and refused to resign the presidency. In 2012, the same president, Fernando Lugo, faced impeachment for his handling of a land eviction that resulted in fatalities. In 2013, Horacio Cartes from the Colorado Party, the same one, became the new president, and that party has remained in control of Paraguay ever since. In 2015, there was an international outcry after an 11-year-old rape victim gave birth. Since the country denied her abortion in December, they also experienced the worst floods in decades, leading to the evacuation of over 100,000 residents. So it was a very tough year. Between 2015 and now, 2024, there have been many protests and social movements addressing corruption, indigenous rights, education, and economic inequality in the country. And like I mentioned, today the Colorado Party remains in power, and their president is Santiago Peña. So, on to the book. This book is like, you're looking at it, it's so dense, super long. I actually was not able to finish it. It's a historical fiction that focuses on the character of José Gaspar Rodríguez de Francia, who I mentioned earlier was a dictator of Paraguay for over 30 years. He was the dictator between 1814 and 1840. So I feel like that, keeping that in mind, that's the context of when this is happening, is important, because for me it was really hard to relate to that time period, to read about that time period. Also, the way the book is structured is the dictator speaks in sort of a monologue that has so many tangents. So it's very hard. He talks about one thing, he talks about the next, and he just kind of switches, and that there are these just blocks of monologue. So it makes it really hard to have clear pauses for dialogue. I feel like it also it's hard to find one central theme or follow a chronic structure. It's kind of just this man's thoughts happening in real time. So I really only recommend it if you have a particular interest in a fictional version of this specific dictator, or maybe if you're someone that can read something that is about a dictator but takes on a lot of tangents. So I'm not one of those people, but if you are, that's what I would recommend the book for. On to fun facts. So there are 5. Number 1 is that it is the only flag with 2 different sides. On one side, they have the shield that has a lion, and on the other side, there's a crown made up of palms and olives. Number 2, currency that has many digits. I believe they kept the currency that the Guarani people used. So for reference, $1 is worth 7,295 guaraníes. And just to put that in context, the minimum monthly wage is 2,680,373 guaraníes. I know those figures are pretty hard to handle if you don't use currency that way. I actually tried watching a video about the economy and I guess inflation and such, and it was really hard for me to keep track of all that data using such big numbers. So number 3, it has one of the largest water reserves in the world. It actually could provide water to the whole world for a duration of 200 years. Number 4 is there's beautiful nature. You can find jaguars and a lot of other really awesome animals. Number 5, it is a major exporter of electric energy or of renewable energy. It only uses 16% of the energy it creates, and the rest is exported. A lot of the exportation goes to Brazil and Argentina. Thank you again for joining me this week. I hope to see you guys again next Saturday. Want to know what country is next? Feel free to check out my reels on my Instagram at Finding Frania. And I hope you subscribe and like this video so that you can tune in again next week. Thank you.